Right now, we are standing on the land that once belonged to Crimean Tatars and then was meanly and insidiously seized by the totalitarian regime during the Stalin era. It is one of the so-called protest meadows. In that regard, we, Crimean Tatar activists who disagree with the actions of the Russian authorities in our region, present our video message to the President of the Russian Federation and the government of the Russian Federation. For the 7 years under the Russian administration, Crimean Tatars have witnessed several representatives of the Russian and Crimean administrations, stating on many different platforms that Crimean Tatars as an ethnic group have all their needs and aspirations satisfied by the new government. But, contrary to the false allegations, we Crimean Tatars feel it necessary to express our disagreement with any assessments of our situation of this kind. For instance, let's take a look at just one instance of blatant outrage happening in Crimea right now. The situation with protest meadows in Yalta region. What is a protest meadow? It is a protest action that comes from discontent and disagreement with the arbitrariness of the local authorities who split Crimean land, bypassing its true owners. At the time when Crimean Tatars are deprived of their legal right to their own land, the land becomes a source of wealth for numerous government officials. Said protest action is a forced measure that was held on a piece of undeveloped real estate, including the part which is owned by Masandra Production and Agricultural Association. This is a well-known fact that in 1944, Crimean Tatar people had been subjected to a genocide, which was accompanied by indiscriminate defamation, robbery, deprivation of any human rights, elimination of a tremendous amount of the Crimean Tatar people, including people who died in the process of transportation in cattle cars, drowning in the sea, execution by shooting of soldiers and officers coming back from the front line, hunger and exhausting work at labor camps. In addition to losing their national territory, basic human rights, and anything imaginable, Crimean Tatar people also lost their houses with residential plots, apartments, all the household items, and also the collective property, i.e. collective farms, also known as kolkhozes in the USSR. These institutions owned land, factories, gardens, wineries, tobacco plantations, etc. At the time of Ukrainian jurisdiction, the protest meadows and the government had come to an agreement, due to which the process of resettlement of the Crimean Tatar people was started. But the problem hadn't been solved completely, because the legal framework in Crimea has changed since 2014. As it turned out, the new Crimean government, which is controlled by the Russian administration, has completely different plans in relation to Crimean Tatar people. Their plans are, in spite of all the promises and pledges made by the highest-ranking officials, to free the southern shore of Crimea of Crimean Tatar people as soon as possible. The property complex of the Masandra Association is situated on the southern shore of the Crimean Peninsula, between the towns of Sudak and Forosh. It brings together 8 winemaking farms and 13 wineries. Moreover, the Masandra Association leased several plots of land, totaling at least 11,000 hectares. The land that was given to the Masandra Association had belonged to Crimean Tatar people, the collective farmers who lived in Yalta, Alushta and Sudak districts. After the forced eviction, the Crimean Tatar collective farms were handed over to Masandra. Thus, the Masandra Production and Agrarian Association was founded at the expense of the land and property of the Crimean Tatar collective farms, whose property rights were unlawfully violated by the totalitarian regime. Therefore, after the deportation, Crimean Tatar people lost access to the collective farms due to circumstances beyond their control. Their land was taken over by the government and has been used by the government for 70 years with no prospects of returning the land to its true owners. On 7th March of 1991, the Supreme Soviet of the USSR adopted the resolution on the repeal of the legal provisions relating to the declaration of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR of 14 November 1989 on the recognition of the illegal and criminal reprisals against people subject to forced resettlement and the guarantee of their rights, which abolished all the repressive decrees related to blanket condemnation of the Crimean Tatar people. Accordingly, all the limitations and restrictions related to the outrageous situation have become negligible. In particular, we are talking about the illegal deprivation of Crimean Tatar collective farmers of Alushta, Yalta and Sudak districts objects of their legal property, whose property has been used by the Massandra Association up to this point without their permission. The Russian Federation, publicly admitting the crimes against the Crimean Tatar people, has accepted all the obligations in regards to restoring the legitimate rights of the people, but contrary to its very own law, including the RSFSR on the Rehabilitation of Repressed Peoples Act, the federal government allows the Crimean authorities to neglect the legitimate rights of the Crimean Tatar people. The property of the Crimean Tatar people, in this case belonging to the Massandra Association, is obtained unlawfully and is supposed to be returned. In spite of this, the government system, while having all the means of resolving the land problem completely at the expense of the land that belonged to the direct ancestors of the protesters, has ignored the international law, the regulations of the Russian legislation and common justice, and is putting Massandra out for privatization now. According to the contract, aforementioned 11,000 hectares of land are going to be rented out to the Southern Project, a company which is a subsidiary of the Bank of Russia. Therefore, the Russian government doesn't recognize Crimean Tatar people as a legal entity and effectively continues the policy of high-handedness, oppression and robbery on the highest levels, as it was during the Soviet era. The most important thing, of course, is the issue of land legalization. I am aware that this is complicated and that Crimean Tatar people aren't the only ones living in Crimea. I know that far from everyone agrees with this decision and say that if they constantly legalize land taken by squatters, orders will never be established. But I believe and ask those living in Crimea to hear and understand me. Repressed peoples are a separate matter, and the state owes much to them. These chapters should be closed, and after that we can say that everyone is equal and the law has to be followed, regardless of an individual's nationality or ethnicity. Everyone has to follow the law, and of course, local authorities must find solutions that are acceptable to everyone and that would allow them to implement the law to the letter. I know that it's under discussion in the Crimean Parliament, and if there is not any final decision yet, there should be. We came here, to this clearing, in 2002, in the August, and started building our house. All our relatives, our fathers, left us. They went to the front line. My father included, from the Yalta Draft Board. After the Great Patriotic War, he was disabled, dreamed about coming back and leaving his motherland, but he didn't live to it. We, their children, want to live here, in our motherland, Crimea, but we are not allowed to. We build houses, we live here, and we suffer here, on our native land. Since 2002, we didn't have neither water nor electricity. Look at the houses we built. We are hard-working people. We came here to make Crimea prosperous, to make it a diamond on the planet's crown. But why our government, every time while promising us to solve our problem, doesn't do anything? It's only promises. How long can we wait? We are desperate. Who do we have to apply to? Which country, which government do we have to apply to be heard? It is impossible. We can't stand it anymore. So many people have passed away already. We live without water, without electricity. We can't call an ambulance. For instance, one of our neighbors lost a child because of it. Why are they telling everyone that everything is so perfect here? Come here and look at this wasteland. Look at how we live. Why is all of this so full of lies? Do a good thing for us. Title our land. This is a shame. Vladimir Vladimirovich, 17 years ago, I came here to the protest meadow. Since then, I've built a house, planted a garden. I've had 9 grandchildren born here. Now the land that belonged to Crimean Tatars was handed over under the grip of the fat cats, the scoundrels from the Bank of Russia. So what? Is the fate of my ancestors going to be repeated, like my father's, who went to war since the first days and who came back disabled, and his 2 children were thrown out of their home into the unknown? And now, is this fate waiting for me too? For my family? For my grandchildren? Who are the grand-grandchildren of the man who spent 5 years of his life fighting against fascism, who lost his leg, who came back to our homeland? It was very hard. It took a lot of effort. And now they want to take our homeland from us again. Now our land is being stolen by the fat cats, businessmen. I'd like to address to our local government and to Putin. As for today, everything possible is done to prevent us from having our land titled. The land we've been trying to legalize for many years. We've been staying here for 17 years. We've been writing letters to the government, both at the time of Ukrainian authority and now under Russia. I'm extremely outraged by all this, and I wouldn't have agreed to the interview if this didn't go off limits. If our government did not try to cover the actual facts on the situation, did not try to put the blame on us, didn't call us invaders or something. No guys, we are not invaders. Look what's going on around here. Look at the Gurzuk town. You give land away to build all the cottages, all the villas, hectares of land per each one. And we can't have just 6 hours of land for us as prescribed by the law. I had my wedding here. I had my children born here. I built a house. And you and your greed still keep pressing us, keep pushing us to do things that we don't like. There is more than 100 of guys like me here. I'm a humble person, but you draw me to complaining about you. We don't like complaining. You promised us to solve our problem, but the only problem that is being solved is how to squash us, how to put the blame on us. Stop, guys. You are the government. We are the people. We are asking you. Solve our problem. It is simple. There is no need to complicate things any further. We don't overstep any bounds. But we see who does. We've been here for 17 years, after all. Come and see what our life is. Everything here is made by our own hands. Countless protest meadows of Crimean Tatar people have been waiting to title and legalize their land and houses, but are still kept hostages by the Tatarophobia that is in full bloom at the government entities of the peninsula. The laws that do exist at this point allow developing all the governmental mechanisms for full-scale rehabilitation of the Crimean Tatar people. What is the reason of inaction of the governmental entities responsible for developing the necessary legislative regulation for this problem still remains a mystery for us. Only those who are driven by chauvinism and hatred toward Crimean Tatar people can pretend that we do not have any significant issues now.